Ruth Henderson just turned 94 last month, and this morning she was chasing her great-grandson around the backyard, laughing like a teenager. 3 years ago, she could barely get out of bed. What changed? A secret she discovered by watching horses. Yes, horses. For over 30 years, Ruth kept this knowledge to herself, afraid people would think she'd lost her mind. But when her favorite granddaughter called her crying, unable to pick up her own baby because of excruciating back pain, Ruth knew she had to speak up. What she shared that day changed everything. Before we dive into Ruth's incredible story, if you're tired of living with back pain and ready to discover what doctors don't want you to know about natural healing, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. And if this story helps you or someone you love, please leave a like to help us reach more people who desperately need this information. Now, let me tell you about the day that changed Ruth's understanding of pain forever. It was a crisp October morning in 1987 when Ruth made the observation that would revolutionize her approach to back pain. She was standing by the kitchen window of her farmhouse, watching old Brutus graze in the pasture. Brutus was the oldest horse on their property, 31 years old, which in horse years made him ancient. Yet there he was, moving with the grace of a much younger animal, bending his massive frame to reach the sweetest grass, never showing a sign of stiffness or discomfort. Ruth's own back was screaming that morning. She'd been dealing with chronic pain for months, and at 68, she was starting to accept that this might just be her new reality. The doctors had given her pills that made her dizzy and told her to take it easy. But watching Brutus, something clicked. "How is it," she whispered to herself, "that this old horse moves better than I do?" That question haunted her for days. She began studying the horses more carefully, especially the older ones. What she discovered defied everything she thought. She knew about aging and pain. The horses had a ritual. Every morning, without fail, they would seek out specific plants in the pasture. Not just any plants, but 2 particular ones that grew wild along the fence line. Ruth had noticed them before, but never paid attention. The horses would rub against these plants, sometimes rolling near them, and always seemed more relaxed afterward. Ruth's curiosity got the better of her. She researched those plants and discovered something remarkable. One was wild Arnica, known for centuries in folk medicine for reducing inflammation. The other was a variety of eucalyptus that had grown wild on their property for generations. The horses weren't just eating these plants, they were using them. But Ruth's revelation went deeper than just identifying plants. She realized that in all her years of living on the farm, she had never seen an old horse hobbling around like elderly humans do. They might slow down, yes, but they maintained their fluid movement until their final days. This observation shattered everything Ruth believed about aging and pain. If these magnificent creatures could maintain mobility and comfort well into their senior years, using nothing but what nature provided, what did that say about human suffering? The more Ruth thought about it, the more convinced she became that humans had overcomplicated pain relief. We'd moved so far from natural solutions that we'd forgotten the simple wisdom that surrounded us every day. But Ruth was a practical woman. Observation alone wasn't enough. She needed to test her theory, and she was about to become her own experiment in a way that would change not just her life, but the lives of everyone around her. What happened next would challenge everything the medical community told her about managing pain, and the results would come faster than she ever dared to hope. By her 70th birthday, Ruth's back pain had become her constant companion. Mornings were the worst. She'd wake up feeling like someone had replaced her spine with rusted metal during the night. Simple tasks like making coffee or feeding the chickens had become monumental challenges. The doctors kept increasing her medication dosages, but the pills only masked the pain while stealing her clarity. Ruth refused to accept a life where she had to choose between being present for her family and being pain-free. One particularly difficult night in late November, Ruth found herself wide awake at 3 in the morning, unable to find any position that didn't send shooting pains through her lower back. She shuffled to the kitchen and made herself some chamomile tea, her mind wandering back to those horses and their mysterious morning ritual. That's when the pieces started falling into place. Ruth remembered her grandmother, a woman who lived to 96 and never complained of back pain despite working on the farm her entire life. Grandma Helen used to make poultices from plants around the property. Ruth had dismissed these old remedies as outdated folklore, but now she wondered if she'd been wrong. The next morning, despite her pain, Ruth made her way to the fence line where the horses gathered. She carefully collected samples of the Arnica, flowers, and eucalyptus leaves, bringing them back to her kitchen like a detective gathering evidence. Ruth spent hours researching, calling her old friend Margaret, a retired nurse who had always been interested in natural medicine. What Margaret told her was both fascinating and validating. Arnica, Margaret explained, had been used by European mountain climbers for centuries to treat bruises and muscle soreness. It contains compounds called helenalan and dihydrohelenalan that actually reduce inflammation at the cellular level. But here's what most people don't know. When properly prepared, Arnica can penetrate deep into muscle tissue, reaching areas that oral medications often miss. The eucalyptus was equally impressive. Its oil contains eucalyptol, a natural analgesic that creates a cooling sensation while increasing blood flow to the affected area. Indigenous cultures had used eucalyptus for pain relief for thousands of years, and modern science was finally understanding why it worked so well. But Ruth didn't want to just understand the science. She wanted to experience the relief. On a cold December morning, exactly 3 months after her observation about Brutus, Ruth decided to create her own version of what the horses had been doing instinctively. She carefully crushed fresh Arnica flowers, just enough to release their oils without destroying their potency. Then she mixed them with a small amount of eucalyptus oil that she'd extracted by steaming the leaves, a method her grandmother had taught her decades earlier for making essential oils. The mixture created a paste with an immediately noticeable warming sensation. Ruth applied it to her lower back, the area that had been causing her the most grief, and then lay down on her heating pad for 20 minutes. What happened next still brings tears to Ruth's eyes when she talks about it. Within the first hour, the constant ache that had been her companion for months began to fade. By the third hour, she was moving around her kitchen without the usual stiffness. By evening, Ruth realized she had gone an entire day without taking a single pain pill. But Ruth was cautious. One good day didn't prove anything. She continued using her homemade remedy every morning for a week, documenting how she felt each day. The results were consistent. Significant pain reduction within hours, improved mobility, and, most importantly, no side effects. For the first time in years, Ruth felt like herself again. She could garden, play with her grandchildren, and sleep through the night. The transformation was so dramatic that her own children began asking what had changed. But Ruth kept her secret. She was afraid that people would think she'd lost her mind, that a 90-year-old woman claiming to have learned pain relief from horses would be dismissed as senile ramblings. So she suffered in silence, not from pain anymore, but from the weight of keeping knowledge that could help so many people locked away in her heart. That silence would continue for over 2 decades, until a phone call from her granddaughter Sarah changed everything, and finally gave Ruth the courage to share what she'd discovered. 24 years later, at 94, Ruth was living proof that her discovery worked. While her friends struggled with walkers and complained about their aching backs, Ruth tended her garden, cooked for family gatherings, and moved with the confidence of someone decades younger. Then came that heartbreaking phone call from Sarah. "Grandma, Ruth," Sarah sobbed into the phone. "I can't even pick up Emma anymore. The doctor says I have 3 herniated discs and they want to do surgery. I'm only 32 and I feel like my life is over." Ruth's heart broke for her granddaughter, but in that moment, she knew her decades of silence had to end. Sarah, sweetheart, cancel any surgery plans for now. Can you come over this afternoon? There's something I need to show you. When Sarah arrived, barely able to walk from her car to the front door, Ruth sat her down and told her everything. The horses, the observation, the discovery, and the 24 years of pain-free living that followed. Sarah looked skeptical, but desperation made her willing to try anything. Ruth led Sarah to her kitchen and began preparing the remedy that had changed her life. She explained each step carefully, knowing this knowledge would soon spread beyond just the two of them. First, Ruth said, we need fresh Arnica flowers. Not the dried ones from the store, but fresh ones that still have their natural oils intact. Arnica works because it contains powerful anti-inflammatory compounds, but they lose potency quickly once the flower is picked. That's why timing matters. Ruth showed Sarah how to identify real Arnica, with its bright yellow petals and distinctive daisy-like appearance. The mountain peoples of Europe called this fall herb because it could heal the injuries that came from hard mountain living. They knew something we forgot. Fresh is always better than processed. Next came the eucalyptus preparation. This isn't just any eucalyptus oil you buy at the store, Ruth explained as she heated water in a large pot. Commercial oils are often diluted or processed in ways that reduce their effectiveness. We're going to make our own the way my grandmother taught me. Ruth placed fresh eucalyptus leaves in a steaming basket above the boiling water, covering them with a tight lid. The steam carries the eucalyptol oils, and we capture them as they condense. This gives us pure, potent oil that penetrates deep into muscle tissue. While they waited for the oil to collect, Ruth explained the science behind what they were doing. When you have back pain, it's usually because of inflammation pressing on nerves or restricting blood flow. The Arnica reduces that inflammation naturally, while the eucalyptus increases circulation and provides immediate pain relief through its cooling effect. After 30 minutes, Ruth had collected enough eucalyptus oil to create the mixture. She crushed exactly 6 Arnica flower heads, just enough to release the oils without overprocessing them, and mix them with 1 teaspoon of the fresh eucalyptus oil. The ratio is important, Ruth stressed. Too much Arnica can irritate sensitive skin, and too much eucalyptus can cause excessive cooling. This combination gives you maximum benefits with minimal risk. Ruth showed Sarah how to apply the mixture in small circular motions, working from the lower back upward along the spine. Always apply it to clean, dry skin and never use it on broken skin or open wounds. The compounds need to absorb gradually for best results. They applied a warm, damp cloth over the mixture to help it penetrate deeper, and Sarah lay down on Ruth's old heating pad set to low heat. Now we wait, Ruth said softly. But I want you to pay attention to what you feel. First, you'll notice a slight warming sensation. That's the Arnica beginning to work on the inflammation. Then you'll feel a cooling effect from the eucalyptus as it increases blood flow to the area. Within 20 minutes, Sarah's expression began to change. The tightness around her eyes started to relax, and for the first time in weeks, she wasn't shifting constantly to find a comfortable position. "Grandma," Sarah whispered, "something's actually happening. The sharp pain it's getting softer." By the end of that first treatment, Sarah was able to sit up without assistance. By evening, she was walking normally for the first time in months. When she returned the next day with little Emma in her arms, both she and Ruth were crying tears of joy. But Ruth's revelation didn't stop with Sarah. Within weeks, Sarah had shared the remedy with her mother, who passed it to her sister, who told her neighbor. Each person who tried Ruth's 2-ingredient solution experienced the same remarkable results. Mrs. Peterson, down the street, who hadn't been able to tend her prized rose garden in 3 years, was back on her knees planting bulbs. Tom Bradley, the retired postman who'd been considering a wheelchair, was walking his dog again. Margaret Foster, Ruth's old friend from church, finally stopped missing Sunday services because sitting in the pews no longer caused her agony. The transformation of their small community was undeniable, and Ruth realized that her secret was becoming a movement of hope for people who had been told to simply accept their pain as part of aging. But the most important validation came from unexpected sources, and what Ruth discovered about the science behind her remedy would convince even the biggest skeptics that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful. Word of Ruth's remedy spread faster than anyone expected. Within 6 months, people were driving from 3 states away to meet the 94-year-old woman who had discovered something their doctors couldn't provide: lasting relief without dangerous side effects. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a pain management specialist from the nearby University Hospital, heard about Ruth through one of her patients who had canceled a scheduled spinal fusion surgery after trying the remedy. Intrigued and slightly skeptical, Dr. Chen requested a meeting with Ruth. What happened during that visit surprised everyone, especially Dr. Chen. "Mrs. Henderson," Dr. Chen said as she examined Ruth's mobility and flexibility, "your range of motion is better than most of my 50-year-old patients. What you've discovered isn't just folk medicine, it's actually supported by current pain research." Dr. Chen explained that modern pain science was finally catching up to what Ruth had observed in her horses. Chronic back pain is often the result of a cycle. Inflammation causes pain, pain causes muscle tension, and muscle tension restricts blood flow, which creates more inflammation. Your remedy breaks that cycle at multiple points. The Arnica, Dr. Chen confirmed, contains sesquiterpene lactones that have been proven in clinical studies to reduce inflammation more effectively than many prescription anti-inflammatory drugs, but without the stomach damage or cardiovascular risks. The eucalyptus oil provides something equally important. It acts as a natural muscle relaxant while increasing local blood circulation. When you increase blood flow to an injured area, Dr. Chen explained, you're bringing oxygen and nutrients needed for healing while carrying away the waste products that contribute to pain. But the real breakthrough in understanding came when Dr. Chen reviewed the traditional preparation method Ruth used. "The reason your remedy works better than commercial preparations," Dr. Chen told Ruth, "is because you're using fresh, whole plant compounds that work synergistically. Commercial preparations often isolate single compounds, but healing plants work best when their components work together." This validation from the medical community gave Ruth the confidence to share her complete method with even more people, but she was careful to include important safety guidelines and additional techniques that could enhance the remedy's effectiveness. Ruth's complete protocol involves more than just the 2-ingredient paste. She discovered that certain lifestyle practices could amplify the healing effects dramatically. First, timing matters. Ruth found that applying the remedy first thing in the morning, when inflammation is typically highest, provides the most dramatic relief throughout the day. Second, gentle movement after application enhances absorption. Ruth recommends simple stretches or a short walk 15 minutes after applying the mixture, allowing the increased blood flow to distribute the healing compounds more effectively. For people with severe pain, Ruth developed variations of her basic recipe. Adding a small amount of calendula oil made from marigold flowers provides additional anti-inflammatory benefits for those dealing with chronic conditions. Mixing in a drop of peppermint oil can increase the cooling sensation for acute pain flare-ups. Ruth also discovered that her remedy works exceptionally well in combination with other natural approaches. Gentle heat therapy, either from a heating pad or warm bath, can increase absorption. Meditation or deep breathing exercises, while the remedy works, can help reset the nervous system's pain responses. The most important discovery, however, was about consistency. While Ruth's remedy provides rapid relief, using it regularly for 2 to 3 weeks creates cumulative benefits that can last for months. At 94, Ruth moves better than most people half her age. She gardens for hours, plays actively with her great-grandchildren, and sleeps peacefully through the night. Her secret isn't just in the remedy itself, but in her understanding that our bodies are designed to heal when we provide them with the right natural support. Today, Ruth's 2-ingredient solution has helped hundreds of people reclaim their lives from back pain. Her story proves that sometimes the most powerful healing comes not from complex medical interventions, but from paying attention to the wisdom that surrounds us in nature. The horses on Ruth's old farm still follow their ancient instincts, seeking out the healing plants that keep them mobile and comfortable well into their senior years. And thanks to one woman's curiosity and courage, humans can now benefit from that same natural wisdom. Ruth's legacy isn't just a remedy. It's a reminder that healing is often simpler than we make it, and that the answers we seek might be growing right outside our window. If you're ready to try Ruth's life-changing remedy, remember that nature's gifts work best when we approach them with respect, consistency, and patience. And most importantly, never stop observing the world around you, because the next breakthrough in healing might come from the most unexpected source. Your back pain doesn't have to define your golden years. Ruth Henderson is living proof that, with the right natural approach, you can move through life with the grace and comfort you deserve, no matter what your age. Ruth's incredible journey from debilitating pain to complete freedom shows us that sometimes the most powerful solutions are hiding in plain sight. Her courage to share this knowledge after decades of silence has already transformed hundreds of lives, and now it's your turn to experience this natural relief. If Ruth's story resonated with you, if you're tired of choosing between pain and dangerous medications, take action right now. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss life-changing information like this. And here's what I really want to know. What natural remedies have been passed down in your family? Drop a comment below and share your grandmother's secret healing methods. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. The wisdom of our elders is disappearing faster than ever, and your comment could preserve knowledge that changes lives. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if Ruth's story inspired you to look at natural healing in a new way. Every like helps us reach more people who are suffering unnecessarily, people who deserve to know that there are alternatives to a life limited by pain. Remember, your best years don't have to be behind you. Sometimes the most incredible discoveries come from the most unexpected observations. Keep your eyes open, trust in natural wisdom, and never stop believing that relief is possible. Thank you for being part of this community where we honor the knowledge of our elders and embrace the healing power of nature. I'll see you in the next video,